What's going on, bottom line viewers? Crazy NFL trade just broke. Adam Schefter is reporting that the New England Patriots have traded Brandin Cooks, wide receiver Brandin Cooks, the archer. He has been traded to the LA Rams in a blockbuster NFL deal. The Rams will receive wide receiver Brandin Cooks and a fourth-round pick this year for a first-round pick in the 2018 draft this year, and a sixth-round pick also this year. So Patriots getting another first-round pick to add to their other first-round pick and two second-round picks, and the Rams are getting a big-time deep threat wide receiver as well as a fourth-round pick in the trade. The LA Rams have made moves for Talib, have made moves for Peters, have made signings for Sue. They currently have Aaron Donald on the roster. They have Todd Gurley on the roster. Now they're making moves for Brandin Cooks. There was rumors that they were going to go out and get a guy like OBJ, but now the Brandin Cooks is coming to town to LA, and he's looking, and I'm sure he's planning on lighting it up on the West Coast. I want to hear what you guys have to say and what you think about this trade. Do you think this was a win for the Rams or the Patriots or both? I will give you my thoughts on the trade as well as the impact on the NFL draft, the impact for the Patriots, the Rams, and the Odell Beckham trade talk. So there's a lot to talk about on this live discussion, but I want to hear from you guys and your thoughts overall on it. If you're tuning in after the fact, make sure you leave a comment on your thoughts as well and hit that like button to make sure that you are supporting the channel. If you're new here and you enjoy NFL content such as these live breaking videos, hit that subscribe button. Definitely, this is an NFL channel that you don't want to miss. So, Brandin Cooks. Brandin Cooks is going to the LA Rams. Crazy, man. I didn't see this coming. A lot of Patriots people, a lot of Patriots reporters out there were actually, and I would like to give credit to PFW. That is, Andy Hart, Paul Perillo, those guys there at PFW and Patriots.com. They've been discussing the potential for a Brandin Cooks trade, and there's also been a little bit of talk in other circles about a potential Rob Gronkowski trade. Now, those two things come head on, and it seems like, first off, why did this happen? So Brandin Cooks was obviously on a contract year. As we know, that Brandin Cooks was traded to the Patriots just this past season for a first-round pick from the New Orleans Saints, going to New England. Brandin Cooks was, and the Patriots gave him back the last pick in the first round last year. So pretty much what happens here is the Patriots got a one-year rental for Brandin Cooks for a first-round pick. They then flip for Brandin Cooks on a contract year because they probably, looks like they weren't going to be able to afford him or sign him. So the Patriots basically said, hey, we're not going to be willing to pay as much money as Brandin Cooks is going to be wanting or probably should be making on the open market, seeing as how the open market broke down this past offseason with Sammy Watkins, Allen Robinson, some receivers. I would say that, Allen Robinson is in the same tier as a Brandin Cooks. Brandin Cooks even more consistently has gotten it done, but two pretty similar players. I don't think that Brandin Cooks is going to get much less or maybe even more than those receivers. So the Patriots weren't willing to pay all that money for a wide receiver to keep him in town. While the Rams, they're looking to make moves, and they're looking to win now. The Patriots are looking to win now as well, but now they've set themselves up with whatever the heck they want to do, whether that's if they want to go post-Brady in this draft and build the post-Brady team, or if they want to flip some picks for some players, or if they want to build the defense right now and build it up so that Brady can win with it and Belichick can win with it this year or next year. There's a lot to be discussed on this, whether the Patriots trade up for a quarterback, whether they trade their picks for Odell, whether they use it on defense, linebacker, and, something pass rusher or something of that sort. Maybe they trade up and get a big-time defensive player, like maybe they trade up and get a Bradley Chubb or something to that degree. Maybe, I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities with what they can do with these first-round picks. And for LA, when you're looking at it from their perspective, of course, I already brought up that they're looking to win now, but it's a very interesting trade because obviously the Rams needed a receiver. But I think the Patriots got fair compensation. They basically got a little bit less than a first-round pick value because they gave up a 4th round in return with Brandin Cooks, and they got back a 6th round, depending on how you look at it, because the Patriots actually move up 9 spots from the last year's pick where they traded for Brandin Cooks, if you're following me right now. So they get the 23rd overall pick this year when they traded for Brandin Cooks for the 32nd pick. So the difference between a 4th and a 6th round pick is just the difference between those two slots, if you know what I mean. So basically the Patriots had Brandin Cooks for a year and then received their 1st round pick back, but it's actually higher than it was last year. So it's very compelling on both sides to see why they did this trade. Now, if you're the Rams fan, you are probably seeing and considering that we're going to have Brandin Cooks around here for the next few years, because we're not just going to trade a 1st round pick on a contract year and not re-sign Brandin Cooks. So that being said, it would make 100% sense if the Rams were to sign Brandin Cooks to a long-term deal, and I would say sooner rather than later, so that maybe he doesn't explode this season in that Rams offense as the #1 target, because, you know, you had Gronk and other people in New England as well taking away from his target share, even though he played good last year for New England. It's really, really interesting, but I'm going to head to the chat right now just to talk about it and see what you guys think. So starting off with Flamer, all he has to say is, wow. He says, good for the Rams, get Cooks for less instead of overpaying for OBJ. He says they need to save the cap space for other players they got this year. Well, they can't really save the cap space because they have to spend that cap space. Not bad, says the Minuteman of 1st round pick. That Flamer, they're saving the cap space this year, I guess, but they're having to spend it next year because Brandin Cooks, unless they let him walk, which would be pretty dumb if you're considering trading a 1st round pick for a guy that's only going to play for your team for 1 year and then not get anything in return. Now, the difference between the Patriots is they got their 1st round pick back. With the Rams, if they were to let Brandin Cooks walk, it would make no sense because they would get absolutely nothing back, except for, I believe they would get a compensatory pick. So they would get, you know, something like that, but they would get like a 3rd or a 4th round pick instead of a 1st round pick if they let him walk. But it seems like they would probably just re-sign him. So your point on they need to save the salary space, they're going to have to spend that money regardless. Gurley, number 30, says, what's up, everybody? What's going on, bro? Kill'em Boy says, great move for both teams. Flamer says, agreed, kill him. Matthew, 123, says, wow, Rams really playing Madden right now. Yeah, they are. Yeah, so should we get to the OBJ thing now? Second City CM Punk brings it up in the chat. OBJ to the Patriots, I'm calling it. Hot Take Hockey says, huge bomb. What's going on, John? The Minuteman says, holy shit. 2 firsts for Odell, maybe. I don't even think they would need to trade the 2 firsts. I actually think that they could trade the 31 and the 43. Like the 31 and the 2nd, like in a second. So a 1st and a 2nd, I think would be able to get OBJ. If they really, really want him, then that still means that they basically what that means is that they traded Brooks and Jimmy Garoppolo for Odell, if you actually think about it in that way. But if they were to go down that road, speaking in a what if sense, because I don't know if this is going to happen or not, I'm guessing it probably won't happen, but there's a chance. Obviously, there's been those rumors swirling. We know that I brought it up. I made a video about it, that the Patriots could potentially be a suitor for Odell, especially now that Brandin Cooks is gone. And with all those rumors about Rob Gronkowski and potential future retirement and Edelman coming off an injury, wouldn't they want another receiver in the fold, like a legit #1 receiver? Maybe they feel like with Edelman and Gronk, that's pretty much enough for like go-to targets. They also have Chris Hogan and Malcolm Mitchell and all those other guys. But it's interesting to kind of think about. Now, as a Patriots fan, I want to know what you guys think. Do you think that it would be wise to trade for Odell, or would you rather spend the picks on, okay, I'll give you 3 different things. Trade a 1st and 2nd for Odell. use all your picks on players, whether that be left tackle, DN, linebacker, whatever you see fit. And number 3 would be trade up for a quarterback, whatever that may take. Let's say it takes the 2 first-round picks. Let's say they go crazy and they trade in the top 5 to get a quarterback. Let's say they go nuts and they trade top 5 in the quarterback, or they trade a first and a second in order to go up a few spots, and let's say they draft Lamar Jackson. What would you prefer? Getting a quarterback with 2 of those picks and then getting 2 more players in the draft, a future quarterback that is, getting Odell for the same deal as you would get the future quarterback, or draft players at every slot? I want to hear from Patriots fans specifically, and also other fans of the NFL. Just what do you guys think would be the wisest move for the Patriots to take? Because they're loaded up. They have 2 firsts. They have 2 seconds. This is going to be a hell of a draft. I'm instantly bought in. I'm instantly really intrigued because throughout my entire life, I think the Patriots have had like my entire fandom. So since like 2001-ish, the Patriots have probably had 1 top 10 pick, and that was Gerard Mayo. And they had a number 7 pick because they traded Deion Branch for the Seattle Seahawks first-round pick, which was a hell of a trade. And then they went back and they got Gerard Mayo. And that was also the year they were supposed to have 2 first-round picks because of Spygate, but that's a whole different thing. But anyways, that's the only time the Patriots have actually had like a really exciting like draft. I guess the other year would be when they traded up to get Chandler Jones and Dante Hightower, which worked out really well. Now, hopefully they can do the same thing here, is get another 2 studs on defense. Maybe that is their plan, is to get another Chandler Jones, Dante Hightower in the mix, because there's definitely players around that range at linebacker at those positions that could definitely impact this team right away. But there's a lot of different avenues that the Patriots could go. Now, filling in some of the news just coming in terms of what Adam Schefter had to put and stuff like that. He did bring up the fact that they could move up to choose a quarterback if they want. He also said that New England was trading Brandin Cooks to LA, which means that the Patriots, won't be trading Rob Gronkowski this offseason, because there was the rumor of that some have speculated, and that the Patriots will be relying on Julian Edelman. Now, I want to bring this up because Julian Edelman, obviously, they're very confident in his status because off his injury. Obviously, they feel like he is good to go. Chris Hogan and Rob Gronkowski, among others. And I think if you're a Gronk fan across the league and a Patriots fan, you're happy that Gronk is going to be around, because it seems like this pretty much ensures that Gronk is going to be there, unless something crazy happens. But it seems like Gronk is going to be there for this foreseeable future. He also says that the Patriots and Rams have discussed a potential Brandin Cooks trade for over a month. So this was a month in the making. I'm sure that they probably went to that owners meeting and sort of got some things through. And he also said that before the Rams were even discussing a Giants trade for Odell Beckham, they liked the potential move for Brandin Cooks. So that's the move. That's pretty nuts. But that's the latest news on them. Mark Anthony Brinkley says, is this move to strengthen the offensive line? I do not believe OBJ is a realistic move. What are we doing with our pick? So I just broke down the options. If I had to guess, I would think that at least I would guess that one of those 4 picks in the top 2 rounds is going to go to a left tackle. I would suspect that probably the one before the end of the first round would be that pick. I would guess that the 23rd pick would go to a defensive player. I think that the second round will probably be spent on defense unless they use one of those picks on a quarterback. But I think that's pretty much all you're going to see is defense, left tackle, and though defense specifically, I think you'll see an off-the-ball linebacker, so somebody like a Dante Hightower / think of a Gerard Mayo in the past, a Jamie Collins, for example. I think they'll try and get one of those type of players. And then possibly a pass rusher in the second round, or the first round, maybe, depending on the range. So, yeah, I definitely think it's going to be defense. Left tackle will be the primary needs and the primary picks. And then probably otherwise they'll be spending it on maybe a quarterback. And I don't think other than that, the offensive line is pretty much good. You could see probably a running back later in the draft. You could see a tight end possibly later in the draft. But I think pretty much it's defense and it's left tackle for sure. So, but outside of just like one pick at left tackle, they might spend a later pick on like a center or a left guard or a right guard. But I don't really see them stocking up too many picks at the same position. Owen says, I think the Pats will get a quarterback with one of their first round picks. That could happen. It depends. I think if they want to get one of those top guys, they'll probably have to trade up. But if they want to get like a Mason Rudolph, they could probably get him at the end of the first round. But that's, again, totally up to them. My preference would be that they probably stick around 23. And if you have to, you trade up a few spots to get Lamar Jackson. But that would be my preference. I know that some people feel differently. I would not like them to trade into the top 5. I would not be for that, to be honest, because that's where all the big quarterbacks are going to go. And that's just, to me, that's just too bold of a move, to be honest. When you still have Brady on the roster, I don't know. I'm not feeling that. I'd rather take a guy a little bit later and try and nail that pick. Okay. Sorry, Brandin Cooks. It's a business, I guess, says Kill 'em Boys. I'm going to miss Cookie. He's a nice guy. I agree, man. I'm definitely going to miss Brandin Cooks, even though he only played with a team for 1 year. And, you know, a lot of Patriots fans were really hard on him for his play, even though he played pretty well all year long. And he was obviously amongst the leaders in receiving yards. To give you the scouting report on Brandin Cooks, I think he is one of the best deep threats in the league. He's definitely got the speed to go deep. I think he does sort of not necessarily struggle, but it's not really his skill set to be a receiver that is in the intermediate range. He's not the greatest route runner. And he's not like one of those guys that's consistently going to pick up first downs. With Brandin Cooks, you're going to see a guy that, for Rams fans out there, you're going to see a guy that's going to have 3 to 4 big plays a game, maybe 3 20-plus yard catches a game and a touchdown, and he's going to make an impact on a few plays in a game, a few key moments, but he's not necessarily going to be like that Julian Edelman type that catches 8 to 10 balls every game, and you notice him all the time, and he's always open. Brandin Cooks is going to make those big plays and occasionally, you know, get that touchdown, and that's what he's worth, and that's why he's worth a lot, because he can make those big game-breaking plays, and he can get down the field. Obviously, according to Pro Football Focus, he did lead the league in offensive drawn interference calls, so defenders interfered on him the most in the league. So that's interesting. But it's interesting to see where the Patriots will go now, because obviously they liked Chris Hogan in that similar role just a season ago, and maybe they feel that he can do that well enough that they don't really need Brandin Cooks in that way, and they'd probably prefer a different type of receiver. But that's kind of the breakdown on Brandin Cooks. I would also say that some of his weaknesses are, like I said, he's not the greatest route runner, and he's not the greatest in the open field when he gets the ball in his hands. Like, he can't, you saw it in the Super Bowl. He got laid out because he's indecisive when running with the football in his hands. He's best running down the field and getting open and making big plays. And that's kind of the scouting report on Brandin Cooks. But the guy is a really cool dude from all I've seen. I'll still follow him on Instagram and stuff because he seems like an awesome guy, really nice guy. He's still extremely young. He seems to be really big into photography. So if you're into photography, definitely give him a follow. But he just seems like a really, really cool guy that definitely will be missed as a Patriot from my perspective, because I enjoyed to watch him play, but I also thought he was a great guy, and he's a really hard worker from all accounts, from Brady, Belichick. And if you're a hard worker, according to Tom Brady, you're probably a pretty hard worker. So Rams are getting a great guy that works really hard. Mark Anthony Brinkley says, also, I'm glad we're not trying to overpay for our receivers. We need our system players. I don't think Cooks fits the criteria. However, he had 1 year. Gurley says, I really wanted Gronk, but at least we have a deep threat now. Yeah, I think the Rams were definitely missing they were missing two things. I think they were missing a game-breaking receiver, tight end or receiver. And I think Brandin Cooks in part gives you that. I don't think he gives you a guy that's going to consistently get open the way a Gronk does, but he gives you a guy that's going to be able to get down the field and make big plays. And I don't think he really had that, especially with Sammy Watkins gone. And even with Sammy Watkins there, I don't think really Sammy Watkins fully fulfilled what they wanted from him. And I think Brandin Cooks will do a better job of doing that. So basically, if you're a Rams fan, look at what Sammy Watkins did last year and then enhance it by basically 2 times, because I think that's what you're going to get from Brandin Cooks. I'd expect like 1,000 yards, 70 catches, and like 7 touchdowns from Brandin Cooks this year. That would be my guess. I'd like to see us target DRC. I wouldn't mind that. So how good are the Rams? That's the question. How good are the Rams? The Rams moved up again. The Rams moved up again. So I think I had the Rams 4th or 5th. Where did I have the Rams in my power rankings, guys? I think I had them 4th or 5th. But despite that positioning, I think they might be ahead. I think they're ahead of the Vikings now. If I had to really break it down, I think they're ahead of the Vikings, and they're probably also ahead of the Patriots for the moment. If the Patriots have a really good draft from my perspective, then I'll probably say the Patriots move back ahead of them. But right now, my top 5 would again be, if I had to order it right now, it would be Eagles, Rams, Patriots, Vikings, then it would be Saints, right? That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's my 5, right? So that's my top 5. So the Rams are very good. And at this moment, I would say that they're the 2nd best team in the league. Killin' Boy says Rams don't have enough, though, even though they upgraded at receiver. I think the Rams can be legit, like I just said. My biggest concern with the Rams is how clutch and how big time is Jared Goff. If he is big time, this team is legit. But if he's not, I mean, these moves could always backfire. Like, I'm not really taking that out of account. Like, I think that could definitely happen. But I'm counting on these moves mostly working, and that's because of the coaching staff they have. They have Sean McVay. They have Wade Phillips. So these players are going to these coaches are going to put players in positions to win and in position to make plays. Bodo says Dynasty is dead. Bell to San Fran next year. He loves Grop. What's going on, Bodo? You were complaining about the live stream. How about that one, bro? Mitch, if the Rams don't go to the 2nd round, are they a disappointing team? I would say so. Yeah, I would say that if they don't go to the divisional round, I think they are disappointing. Considering they made the playoffs, they got to the wild card round. That was the first step. I think they definitely need to make the next step this year. Billy says, I think they're trading for a quarterback. Bodo says, OBJ wants to be paid. He wants to be the highest paid player. OBJ, he will kill a franchise. I don't agree with killing a franchise, but I definitely think that he wants to be paid. I won't disagree there. Rose the God says, get OBJ. Future quarterback says K Future. Owen says, no, OBJ is too much of a distraction. Pats don't get people like that. Well, they did get Randy Moss and Corey Dillon and all those other players. If you want to count Aaron Hernandez as one. Flamer says, Packers fan, just use the picks. Could OBJ be a cancer in the locker room if he goes to New England? I doubt it. I actually, can we, again, do I have to go on another OBJ rant? When has he ever been a cancer in the locker room? Can you guys give me an example? Why do we look at Antonio Brown one way and OBJ the other way when Antonio Brown has been much worse on the field? He throws temper tantrums to his quarterback, offensive coordinator, and head coach. He throws Gatorade bottles on the field. He films his team in the locker room on Facebook Live. And yet OBJ is a cancer because he pretended to propose to a net. Can we stop with that, guys? He's not a cancer in the locker room. The most that OBJ is he is extremely famous, which causes for a lot of attention off the field. But when it comes to on the field, all the players in the Giants love him. All the coaches love him. Okay? So I don't want to hear any more of that stuff. Can we stop? That's propaganda. That is media inflation. That is not real life. If you actually watch OBJ, he's not a distraction in the locker room. All players love him. On his team, I should say, because Josh Norman definitely doesn't like him. Bodo says, Pat's too fine with picks. Don't sell out for the flash. I don't disagree with that. I think that there are a lot of different ways. Again, the only thing I would be mad at is if the Patriots traded to the top 5. Even that, I don't necessarily think I would be mad. Because I think Belichick knows that guy is the next guy. But then again, I would feel like I would be kind of gypped for the next couple of years. I would feel like the Brady era has simply come to an end. And as a huge Brady fan, I would feel a little bit disappointed. So the only move, again, that I would be a little bit disappointed in, I think is a better word than mad, is if they traded all the way up to the top 10 to pick a quarterback. But that would be the only move. If they traded up slightly to get a quarterback, I'd be happy. If they traded, if they picked all their players, perfect, I'd be happy. If they trade for OBJ, I'll be happy. If they trade for another player in the second round for maybe a pick or whatever, or maybe as another move that AC brought up, maybe they trade for Michael Kendricks for a third, I'd be fine with that. But there's only probably one scenario where I wouldn't necessarily be really happy. Well, yeah, Gronk is definitely a better player than Cooks, for sure. He's the greatest tight end of all time. Coach says, can Malcolm Mitchell be an impact player? Well, in his rookie season, I mean, he had a good year. He showed some explosiveness. He was definitely reliable and in the biggest moments, so Brady definitely trusts him. I don't know if he's definitely going to be an impact player, but I think he can be a solid number 2 receiver. And in the Patriots system, I don't think you need much more. I know that they have, a few other guys they're counting on. I guess this means that Dorsett as a depth option and Britt as a depth option have more legitimacy to making the roster now, because they re-signed those guys. And then they also really like these kids on the practice squad. This one McCarron kid, if you actually turn on his highlights, it looks like he's Wes Welker. Like, he's literally a Wes Welker clone. Like, he looks like the same player as Wes Welker. It's actually really scary to see how similar he is. But I think Malcolm Mitchell could definitely be a number 2 receiver. But again, that's only basing it off his first year. And obviously he didn't play all of last year. So we're going to have to see in training camp, and with another year in the system, he'll definitely get better. But I think Edelman and Gronk, because those two, we haven't seen Edelman and Gronk really play together since 2015. Really. I mean, 2016, they played a couple of games together. But besides that, 2015, and they were the entire offense in 2015. That's when they had no run game. That's when they had no other option. They had Brandon LaFell, and they had no tackles because they were both hurt. So, I mean, Edelman and Gronk can carry an offense, and then the other guys, Hogan and Mitchell, and those guys can kind of work around it. Brandin Cooks was just the piece on top, Brandin Cooks was just that guy that could open up deep down the field so that Edelman could get open underneath. But I think all those other players will be fine. And obviously Chris Hogan has shown that he can be that type of player that Cooks was last year. So as long as he stays healthy, I think that they will be fine on offense. And definitely with these picks, I'm looking forward to see, especially what they do on the defensive side of the ball, because this could definitely turn around the defense right away if they nail those picks. Okay, can you talk about this from the Rams perspective, which is honestly more interesting? I did talk about the Rams perspective for a bit. Basically, I said and I stated that Brandin Cooks, in the Rams system, I think you're getting a guy that is going to be like what Sammy Watkins was, but it's going to be like ×2. Like he's going to play the same role, I think, but he's going to be a lot better. And I think you wouldn't have traded for Brandin Cooks unless you were going to sign him long term. Because the interesting thing to me about the trade is that the Patriots basically did the same trade, but that was with 2 years on the contract. The Patriots had him signed this year and last year, while the Rams only have 1 year with Brandin Cooks, and then they have to decide whether they want to sign him for $15 million or let him go, because he's probably going to get somewhere around $13 to $15 million, maybe even more, depending on the market, because we saw what Sammy Watkins and Allen Robinson got. But again, from an on-field perspective, I think you're getting an upgrade at the receiver spot. You're definitely getting a player that the Rams really needed. They really needed a receiver that can make big-time plays down the field. Robert Woods can be that intermediate target that he's good at being. And then you also have Todd Gurley and all those other players, Cooper Kupp, over the middle. So basically what this does is this opens up plays for Robert Woods. This opens up plays for Cooper Kupp. And this allows Brandin Cooks can be sort of that enhanced decoy playmaker, where if he's not open down the field, you have those players underneath. And it maybe every once in a while, Jared Goff can unload it and he can hit Brandin Cooks deep down the field. Jared Goff does have a pretty good deep ball, so this will definitely help the entire offense. And this also stretches out the offense from the perspective of the run game, because when you think about having a receiver like Brandin Cooks, this makes the corners back off. We saw how the Jaguars played against Brandin Cooks. They were playing 10 yards off because they were afraid of him running past them. So that allows him to do the outs and the comebacks. And that's what he was really getting good at towards the end of the season with Brady, was just getting those timing routes, of his speed being such a worrisome factor to the defense that he could come back and catch those routes. So I think obviously Brandin Cooks, very good player. Like I said, awesome guy. And I think you're going to get a very hard worker, very good player on the field. But like I said, there's weaknesses to his game. I still don't think he is a complete great route runner. He's still very young. He can still improve. He's still peaking. And I think he isn't the greatest with the ball in his hands, making people miss. He's kind of indecisive from that perspective. But that's pretty much the entire LA conversation. When it comes to that move. And also, obviously, you're not going to be trading for OBJ, if I really needed to tell you that. You're not going to be trading for Gronk, and you're trading your first-round pick. So this means you're not getting a first-rounder this year. And you're probably – the interesting thing about the Rams is I still think defensively you need linebackers and you need probably an edge rusher. So they're going to have to fill those needs later on in the draft rather than earlier in the draft. Boy Shaq says, welcome to the Rams, Brandon. Kevin Durkant says Brandin Cooks is decent, but we haven't seen him without a top 3 quarterback yet. That is true. I will give you that, Kevin Durkant. You're not often correct, Kevin Durkant, but you're correct about that. Deshaun Jackson isn't the best deep threat. Not according to stat. Maybe like 3 years ago. What has he done for me lately, though? Bodo says, by the way, Pittsburgh needs to fire Tomlin and get rid of Ben. I think you've been saying this for 2 years. Supreme Hockey says, hey, I've not been on the live stream in like a year. What's going on, bro? Glad to have you back. 49ers are still beating the Rams in our division. Yeah, the 49ers better make some moves then. That's all I'll say. Brandon Williams says the Patriots have to use these 2 first-round picks on defense. So Brandon really wants to see the 2 picks go to the defense. I would be welcome to that as well. I would rather pick the tackle in the 2nd round. So Brandon, I agree with you. I'd rather not reach for a tackle because I know the tackle class is not exactly the greatest. But there are some players towards the end of the 1st, early 2nd round that are sort of in that range. And I'd rather them spend the tackle pick at 43 rather than at 31 or 23, and I'd rather spend 2 picks on the defense if they are indeed going to keep those picks and not move up or move down or trade. So that would be my ideal situation as well. I would like to pick a pass rusher and a linebacker with those picks if it was me. Belichick isn't going to San Fran. He's just going to retire. Can we stop that? Yeah, the Rams, they obviously, it's interesting from the perspective as well. They have to sign Aaron Donald. They have to sign Brandin Cooks. And in the future, in the next couple of years, I don't know exactly when, but they have to sign Todd Gurley. And then a couple of years after that, they need to sign Jared Goff. So there's a lot of big-time key pieces that they're going to need to be signing. But this year, they have the biggest chance of any to go out there and win a Super Bowl. And as we know, guys, now, I've been saying it, I've been preaching it, that the best thing you can have on your roster today is a good quarterback that is cheap, that's on a rookie contract, like we see with the Eagles with Carson Wentz. Now, Jared Goff isn't quite Carson Wentz level, but if he can be a little bit better than he was last year, that's considered a steal. And then you can allow yourself to work those trades for Marcus Peters, for Brandin Cooks, and build your team around that young quarterback because he's not making boatloads of money like other teams are paying Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan and Matt Stafford. Because now you're using, the money. And this is what I want to see. I think a team like the Chiefs, for example, if they can really make some moves and if Mahomes is really legit, they can be really good in the next couple of years because they have that baller that's a rookie contract, and they also build that team around him. So like a team like the Chiefs are one to look out for in the next couple of years, I think. Not necessarily this year, but like in the next couple of years, I think. The NFL uses seeds, for whoever was wondering. Kevin or Ken is not a fan of Wes Welker. Everybody's on the 49er bandwagon. Did I start that? Penguins three-peat. I agree with Bodo on that one. Damn you, Pat, says Rick Badboy. Rick Badboy is that conspiracy theorist that thinks that everybody is trying to make moves for the Patriots' sake. Talk about who the Pats could target with the 23rd pick. Okay. Well, let's look at some of the people in the range. I've been hearing a lot of names. They've recently been visiting with a lot of different linebackers. So I really think they're going to pick a linebacker at that spot. If I had to guess, I think they're going to pick a linebacker. And my guess would probably be Evans from Alabama. Sort of seems like the pick that they would go for. There's also some other guys that they may be going after. I think Landry will go a little bit earlier, although I would love to have him. So just looking at some mock drafts here, see where everybody has everyone. But looking in that range, so Davenport is around like 14-ish. I'm not really in love with him anyways, so I wouldn't really like, see, some people have Landry around like 12, and some people have him slipping to like 18. If they really wanted him, like some people even have him lower. So it's really weird. Like Landry is a player that could go anywhere from probably 25 and down. Like they have Harold Landry here at 25 to Tennessee. I think there's Sam Hubbard is in that area, although I think that would be a little bit of a reach, in my opinion, to get Sam Hubbard there. I would really like Harold Landry. Rashaan Evans from Alabama, as I mentioned, I think would be a good pick. Who else? Looking at these players here. if they wanted to trade up, they could get Roquan Smith or Tremaine Edmonds at linebacker, but I don't think they would do that. And who else? I think those are the primary guys. Obviously, there's Vander Esch or whatever, however you say his name. I also think that they'll probably target a guy like Lorenzo Carter at the end of the first round. There's talks of that tackle from Notre Dame at the end of the first rounds. There's also talks of that tackle from Texas at the end of the first round. But at 23, I think it's going to be an edge player or a linebacker. So I think some of the names to look out for would be Rashaan Evans, Arden Key, Sam Hubbard, Harold Landry. Yeah, those are the main ones. And then potentially a trade up for Marcus Davenport, Roquan Smith, Tremaine Edwards. But I think those are the main names, guys. So if you're looking at the 23rd pick, I think it's probably going to be on defense, and I think it's probably going to be in the front seven. So, yeah, Kevin Durkin, I went there. I hope Harold Landry goes to the Pats, Jamar. How many years left on Cook's deal? It's only this year. That's why it's very intriguing. That's also why the Patriots traded him. I don't know if they really need to sign Sue, though. Maybe Sue's only a one-year rental. Mr. Mike says, how good are they trying to be? I hope they're like the Eagles' dream team. Well, they're rather going to be Super Bowl contender or they're going to be Eagles' dream team. So they're somewhere in between. What else? Bodo says, no, Mitch, I will not stop. Belichick will go. I'm calling it first. What the hell? If I'm wrong, only you peeps will remember. Well, I will never let it go then. I did start the 49ers stuff. I hope the Patriots get Lamar Jackson. I would love that. Hopefully we get Chubb, says Jin Bampo. Well, we definitely have to move up for that. You know what's actually funny about that is Belichick went to Chubb's pro day and said that there's no chance of getting him because they're not in the top 5, which I thought was really funny. What else? Z Smooth says, Jan, let's focus on hockey right now. Save football for later. Well, Z Smooth, if you want to focus on hockey, go subscribe to the Hot Take Hockey channel where we'll be covering the NHL playoffs. Again, this channel is only for NFL purposes at the moment. So if you are an NHL fan, go subscribe to Hot Take Hockey. The channel link is in the description. The trade was trash for whom, Mr. Perfect? Jin Bam Po says Mayfield nice as, I don't know if I want to say that on air. Rick Badboy says, is corner a priority? I don't think so. Maybe, but I don't think so. Like, I think it's one of those that's in the mid. I would consider it probably like the 5th or 6th need on the team, to be honest. Like, probably like 4th or 5th need on the team. So I don't really think so. But some people may have a different perspective on that. What do you... Oh, I just missed that. What do you think of if they draft Roquan Smith from Georgia? Actually, I am just going to actually break down Roquan's film in the next 2 days. I broke down Tremaine Edmonds. I've been kind of slow on the linebackers, but I'm from most of what I know, I would love to have him on the Patriots because he is really fast. He is really athletic. He is a beast. He's really good in coverage, and that's exactly what the Patriots need. So I would love that. But I've mostly broken down Tremaine Edmonds, and from what I saw from Edmonds, I'm assuming that Roquan Smith is the best linebacker in the draft. So there you go. Even though Edmonds is really young, like he's only like 20. He's not even 21. So, and I think he's like 19, 20. Like he's super young. Like one of the youngest players ever to get drafted. So I think Roquan will go within 10 and 20. Probably more likely 10 and 15. What's up? I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce your name, bro. HD. I'll just say that. What's up? Mr. Perfect. By the way, I like your name. For the Pats, I am not someone that believes in rookies. Well, you have to look at it on a different perspective. You have to look at it in the perspective of the Patriots got compensation for a player that they probably were not willing to pay all the money that they were going to have to pay. So I understand it took me a while to kind of understand that perspective of a trade, but definitely considering that and considering what they traded for him, I'm happy with the trade, even though I really do like Brandin Cooks. And like I said, I think he's a really cool guy. Seattle, no chance they win the West. I'm just going to put that out there right now. And guys, I need to read you a quote. I need to read you a quote, bro, right now from the great Dilly Vanilli. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Do you think this is Dilly Vanilli guaranteeing that the Dallas Cowboys will make the playoffs? Let me read this out for you. Okay. This is me. I said the boys are stuck in Averageville. The boys meaning the Cowboys. The boys are stuck in Averageville. Dilly says, okay, keep thinking that, LOL. So from my perspective right there, I said that the boys are stuck in Averageville, which means I think the boys are somewhere around 7 and 9, 8 and 8, whatever. And Dylan says, keep thinking that, LOL. Okay, in caps. So that means that I think he thinks they're better than I think they are. So that means that I think he is guaranteeing the playoffs because I said average. So that means like 7 and 9, 8 and 8, 9 and 7, like missing the playoffs, but not by too much. So, okay, keep thinking that means they're going to make the playoffs, right? So I say, oh shit, Dilly is guaranteed the offs. AC responds with some exclamation points. I say, are they winning the division? And Dylan says, I have them as a wild card team again. Well, you were wrong last year, Dylan. And he says, but never guaranteed it. Bro, you just said, keep thinking that. How is that you not guaranteeing it? I want to hear from you guys. Is this Dylan guaranteeing the Cowboys will make the playoffs or not? I need the hard evidence right now. Because Dylan will never say if he guarantees something or not, because that's just the way he is. No problem, Bodo. Roquan reminds you of Jamie Collins. I think he's faster than Jamie Collins, but not as big. Mr. Perfect, I think Cooks will get anywhere from $12 to $15 million. Everybody's okay. I didn't ask you guys if you think the Cowboys are going to make it. I asked if you think that he's guaranteeing it. Guys, get my question right. Kevin Durkant says the Cowboys can make the playoffs, in my opinion. They probably will, actually. Mr. Mike completely disagrees. He says they'll finish 5 and 11. Stefan says, I think they'll make the playoffs. Rick Badboy says, I give Cowboys 9 and 7 at best. I wouldn't mind Patriots getting Manziel. I wouldn't. Why not? Bring him in for a workout. Try it. Why not? Oh, my arm. Fuck. Mr. Perfect says Cowboys got no one on defense except Sean Lee and the one-year wonder Lawrence. That could be true. Dilly just lied again. See? He's a liar. I'm telling you. Bodo says the boys have a coaching and owner issue. The boys will go 10 and 6 and make the playoffs. That's a bold prediction. Rick Badboy says Cowboys defense would have to play out of their minds. Stefan says, what do the Rams look like? What they look like on paper is insane. Definitely. I think people are still missing the fact, like I said, corners, really good. Safeties, really good. Defensive tackles, really good. I still think they are missing an edge rusher and linebackers in the inside. Those are the two biggest weaknesses. I think they'll probably draft some of those players in the later rounds because obviously they don't have a first round pick. And I don't know exact what picks they have for Marcus Peters and all that jazz. But I don't even know if they have a second. That's interesting to think about. But anyways, I still think they're missing those positions. But again, I think they're second. Now that they got Brandin Cooks, they got a guy that can go deep. They got Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods underneath. They have decent tight ends. I think they could use an improvement. Pretty good offensive line. Obviously, they got one of the best backs in the league. They have Sean McVay. They have Wade Phillips. They have a cool home field. So I think they're going to do work. Patriots should sign DeAndre Levy. I haven't heard that name in a while. I would not mind them taking him in for a visit, though. Why do I think the Patriots released McClellan? Because I think just somewhat for cap space, but I also think he was obviously on injury report. He was on the injury report last year. Last year he never played. I think it was more about kind of what they have at linebacker and cheaper options playing the same role. And I think part of it is they're probably going to draft a couple players at the position. Part of it is cap space. I think there's a number of different factors on that, but I think that there are some linebackers coming back and for the Patriots that I think will play bigger roles than him regardless. Like I think obviously they brought back Marquise Flowers from last year. Dante Hightower is coming back. They have Kyle Van Noy. They have a Landon Roberts. And then Harvey Lange is a guy that didn't really get a chance to play last year, but he is a guy that they like. And those are just the players in the system. Plus you have Derek Rivers who's there. So there's a lot of different players, and then they'll probably draft a couple guys. I wouldn't be shocked if they signed a veteran free agent near the end of like July or something, but I don't know. I think it was mostly to do with cap space. I liked him. I didn't mind him as like a depth guy that they had, but I guess they really felt like he was overpaid for the role that he would play on the team. They could have just released Cyrus Jones. Well, yeah, Cyrus Jones, I think they're going to give one more chance, but I would not be shocked if he gets traded or if he gets released this year. I would not be shocked at all. I think he's very likely. He's very, 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 very likely to get cut in training camp. Very likely. But if he does somehow improve or surprise, then he might make it. Who knows? I'm actually excited to see him play in training camp. That's why I like training camp. Just to see if these players perform. All right. I think I'm done. Do we have any more questions? It's been a long one, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video from Mitch of TheBottomLineView. If you did, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I will answer a couple more questions here, and then I will be out. I know that Dylan is releasing a video on Thursday. He's talking about the wide receivers in the draft. If you haven't already checked out the latest from me, that's the 10 best players left in free agency. Go check that out. And that's pretty much it I got to plug. So I'll answer these last couple questions, and then I'm going to say goodbye. So do you think they will get another cornerback? I think they could, but I don't think they would spend an early pick on it. But I could be wrong. They did have Delvin Breaux in for a visit, but it doesn't seem like he's going to be signing. And yeah, maybe they'll bring in another veteran guy, but I think they seem pretty content with where they're at. I think they'll obviously bring in some undrafted guys. They always do at that position. but maybe a mid-round pick. But I don't see it being a high priority for them, to be honest. I think Cooks is going to be, I think McCourty is going to be one of the starters. I don't think he'll be utilized better. I think he'll be utilized the same way Sammy Watkins was. I think he'll just be more of a threat. Because he was utilized pretty well for New England. It's just, I don't know. It took them a little bit of time to get chemistry, I think. Maybe he'll be utilized a little bit better, but like throughout his career with the Saints and the Patriots, he's had similar numbers everywhere. And I expect him to have, again, like I said earlier, I think 70 catches, 7 touchdowns and 1,000 yards would make sense for Brandin Cooks. But anyways, guys, last question. Do you think they will get Harrison or Casillas? I'd like Casillas to come back. I would definitely be up for that. As for Harrison, I would not doubt that they sign him to a 1-year, like $2 million contract, but we'll see. I think that both guys are pretty likely that it happens, but I don't know. We'll see. I think at least one of those guys comes back to answer that question. Jared says they need to get a cornerback. McCourty is just above average. I've talked about that enough by now. Yeah, it's not like the Breeze Cooks connection. Robot guys now coming to the chat. All right, guys, I'm out. Thank you for joining me here today. And if you are just joining me at the end of this video, go back to the beginning, rewatch it, and you can hear all my thoughts on this trade. It was a big blockbuster in the NFL, but the Patriots, the Rams, they made moves. Patriots 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. What are they going to do? OBJ, trade for a quarterback, defense, Brandin Cooks, LA, big-time city, big-time money. Peace out, guys.